7.0 magnitude earthquake rattles Taiwan around midnight, and strong aftershocks may follow in the coming week. An estimated 700,000 returning trips via land crossings are expected today as the long weekend Christmas break comes to an end. And we will take a look at how tea workers in Sri Lanka struggle in poverty, especially after the country was ravaged by one of the worst storms in its history. Good evening, you're watching Cable News. I'm Evan Bai. A magnitude 7.0 earthquake struck the waters of Taiwan's Yilan County late Saturday, the strongest since the 7.3 Nantou quake in 1999 and last year's 7.2 Hualien quake. While there were no major casualties and damage reported in the immediate aftermath, authorities warned of possible aftershocks of magnitude 5.5 to 6.0 over the next week. Bess Leung reports.
A video recorded inside a resident's home captured the tense moment as the quake struck. Restaurant patrons panicked as the late-night tremors shook Taipei City. The high-speed rail station also experienced noticeable shaking, prompting multiple trains to briefly suspend service. The new Taipei MRT circular line also briefly halted operations. Some 200 passengers were stranded in carriages for over an hour before being guided by station staff to walk along the tracks to the nearest station. Air traffic was also disrupted as Taoyuan International Airport activated its safety protocols, demanding several flights to delay their landings. Two passenger aircraft had to make an emergency climb and go around just as they were about to land. Meanwhile, parts of the ceiling at Terminal 2 collapsed during the quake, striking two passengers who were unharmed. The quake jolted Taiwan at 11 p.m. with its epicenter offshore about 32.3 kilometers east from the coastal city of Yilan at a depth of 72.8 kilometers. Tremors were felt all across the island, reaching intensity level 4 on Taiwan's own 7-tier scale, meaning there could be minor damage. More than 3,000 homes in Yilan briefly lost power. In Taipei, some isolated cases of damage, including gas and water leakage, were reported. A 62-year-old school janitor in New Taipei City was believed to have plunged from a ladder while he was checking some damaged water pipes and was pronounced dead after being rushed to the hospital. The Weather Administration said damage from the quake should be limited because it was deep and hit offshore, but warned that aftershocks measuring between 5.5 and 6 could occur over the next week. Bess Leung, Cable News.
In the face of aftershock warnings arising from the quake, some Hong Kong holidaymakers traveled to the island as planned, while others adjusted their itinerary. Jamie Liu reports.
Amid the peak of Christmas and New Year holiday flight demand, departures to the quake-hit Taiwan remained on schedule. Local holidaymakers seemed undeterred by the earthquake, as check-in counters saw their usual long queues during peak travel periods. There's no need to be afraid, a traveler said, expressing confidence in Taiwan's experience in handling mass evacuations and disaster warnings. However, another traveler was playing it safe. He cancelled plans to visit Yilan, the coastal city closest to the epicenter, and said he would only stay in Taipei. Meanwhile, Hong Kongers heading to Japan were also unfazed by the heavy snow and strong winds expected to hit Hokkaido. A tour group of about 20 people set off for their 7-day trip to Hokkaido as planned. The tour guide said he would adjust the itinerary depending on weather conditions. A tour group member said if the blizzard struck, he might be stuck in the hotel, but having already joined the tour, skipping was not an option for him. Don't overthink it. The most important thing is to have fun, another member said. The government reminded that if residents need help while outside Hong Kong, they can contact the Immigration Department's 24-hour assistance hotline. Jamie Liu, Cable News.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong's land border checkpoints with the mainland are getting busy as residents return home from their Christmas long weekend holiday, with immigration officials expecting today to be the peak of inbound crossings. Again, Jamie Liu reports.
In the afternoon, more travelers began emerging from the arrival hall exit of the border control point at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. Residents waited in long queues for buses heading into the city. Many taxis were seen waiting for passengers at the pickup area. Some residents said they had planned an early return from their trip to avoid peak passenger traffic at immigration clearance. A traveler returning early from Zhongshan said he chose the city to steer clear of large crowds in popular destinations of Shenzhen and Zhuhai. Another resident coming back from Macau said he was heading to the airport for his next trip to Taiwan. Jamie Liu, Cable News.
Wrapping up the city's economic performance for the year, Financial Secretary Paul Chan estimated a year-on-year growth of 3.2%, outperforming earlier expectations, with both stock and property markets seeing a surge in price and trading volume.
2025年快將過去，今年整體經濟穩中有進。
Bidding farewell to 2025, Chen hailed the overall economic development as making progress while maintaining stability. Economic growth for the year is expected to accelerate slightly to 3.2% from the previous forecast of 2% to 3%. He wrote in his weekly blog that, despite external uncertainties, asset market performance continued to improve, with sustained capital inflows. The Hang Seng Index closed last week at 25,818, up nearly 29% from the end of last year, marking the best annual performance since 2017. Annual funds raised through initial public offerings more than doubled year on year, exceeding $270 billion as of mid-December. The average daily turnover of the stock market was close to $260 billion in the first 11 months. The property market also remained buoyant, with nearly 57,000 transactions in the first 11 months, 16% more than the same period last year. Property prices rose about 3% cumulatively, while rents were up around 4%. Meanwhile, exports and investment have stayed robust, and local consumption reversed last year's decline with a modest increase, the finance chief added. Looking ahead, rate cut expectations should support business sentiment. He emphasized that the coming year will mark the inaugural year of the country's 15th five-year plan, and that Hong Kong will align closely with national development goals. Polls have opened in Myanmar's first general election since junta toppled Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi's democratically elected government in a 2021 coup. In Yangon, the country's biggest city, polling stations opened at 6 a.m., with the regular flow of voters kept going in. Observers from Russia, China, Belarus, Cambodia, and more have flown into the country ahead of the polls. Senior General Min Aung cast his ballot shortly after polling stations opened in Naypyidaw, the country's capital. He declined to comment on whether he intended to run for president, emphasizing that there was an established procedure for selection. The heavily restricted election on Sunday is taking place in about a third of Myanmar's 330 townships, with large areas inaccessible amid a raging civil war. The second round of polling will take place in 2 weeks' time, before the third and final round on January 25th. Dates for counting votes and announcing election results have not been declared. The election has been derided by critics, including the United Nations, some Western countries and human rights groups, as an exercise that is not free, fair or credible, with anti-military political parties not competing. Ahead of peace talks with U.S. President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Russia for showing no interest in peace. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that if Ukraine did not resolve the conflict peacefully, Russia will use military means. Jamie Liu reports.
Russia's defense ministry released videos showing the Russian flag being hoisted in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. Russia claimed that its forces had captured the cities of Myanmar there and Huliapole in the Zaporizhia region. Ukraine admitted the situation in the two cities was difficult but dismissed the Kremlin's claims as examples of a weapon of disinformation. Speaking when receiving reports from top military officials, Putin described the capturing of the two cities as important results of the combat operation. He reiterated that if Kyiv was not willing to end the matter peacefully, Russia would achieve all the goals using military means. Before the scheduled talks with Trump in Florida, Zelensky stopped by Canada to meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney in Halifax. Mentioning Russia's recent aerial attack on Kyiv, Carney said Canada stood with Ukraine in its difficult time and pledged $2.5 billion Canadian dollars in additional economic aid.
Under President Zelensky's leadership, we have the conditions, the possibility of a just and lasting peace. But that requires a willing Russia.
This attack is, again, Russia's answer on our peace efforts, and it's really showed that Putin doesn't want peace, and we want peace.
Looking forward, the Ukrainian leader said his talks with Trump would focus on security guarantees to ensure Russia would not resume aggression. Jamie Liu, Cable News.
At least 15 people have been killed and 19 injured when a bus plunged into a ravine on the Inter-American Highway in western Guatemala, authorities confirmed, and declared 3 days of national mourning. Firefighters rushed to the scene for rescue operations, taking more than 2 hours to recover injured passengers and retrieve the bodies of the victims. 11 males, 3 women, and a minor were among the dead, according to a spokesman for local firefighters. The horrific accident occurred Friday evening near the 174-kilometer mark of the highway, where the bus dropped about 100 meters into a ravine. The area is a mountainous stretch of road known for limited visibility. I deeply regret the tragedy that happened on the Inter-American Highway, President Bernardo Alvarado said on social media, vowing to coordinate all necessary actions to assist those who have been affected. For some communities around the world, 2025 has been a year of relentless hardship, marked by a series of devastating natural disasters from powerful earthquakes to widespread flooding. This suffering is acutely felt in central Sri Lanka's tea-growing areas, where entire villages have been swallowed by mudslides, forcing plantation workers and their families to seek shelter in local schools and temples. Jeremy Zhu has the story.
My wife, son-in-law, daughter, mother-in-law, 2 grandsons are all dead. I don't have any protection here, said this Tamil tea plantation worker. His family perished in November when their home was buried by a landslide triggered by torrential rains from Cyclone Ditwa, which brought widespread floods and mudslides to the island nation. While flatter tea plantation grounds were unaffected by the cyclone, many workers' homes were destroyed. World-renowned Sri Lankan tea generates billions of dollars in annual export revenue. Most plantation workers in the hills, however, earn less than $4 daily minimum wage and lack adequate access to education, healthcare, or good jobs. A lot of these workers, mostly descendants of laborers brought from India by British colonists, live in colonial-era working quarters close to mountain slopes and need to accommodate as many as 8 family members within a space of 100 square feet. Authorities have pledged compensation packages to assist with rebuilding or relocating to safer ground. But for many homeless survivors, that assistance feels painfully slow in arriving. This woman said she was asked to evacuate for safety, but now too frightened to go back to her home. We are scared of the rains and desperately need a home of our own, she said. Even in the aftermath of the disaster, workers have been compelled to return to the tea estates, with no support offered by plantation owners unless they work.
In countries like Sri Lanka, so disasters don't break the system. So what disasters do is they expose the already broken systems.
Jeremy Chu, Cable News.
To the weather now. Mainly fine. It will be cool tomorrow morning and dry during the day. Temperatures range between 17 and 22 degrees. That's our news tonight. I'm Evan Bai. Thank you for watching and good night.